3 spine-chilling true countryside horror tales, sinister secrets revealed in haunted landscapes. Claire stood on the creaking porch of her late grandparents' farmhouse, the paint peeling away like secrets forgotten over time. The sprawling Montana countryside stretched out before her, a stark contrast to the constant clamor of Denver. She had imagined her children playing in sun-drenched fields, laughter echoing through the crisp air. But beneath the idyllic charm loomed an oppressive presence, an unseen weight clinging to the wind. It began with whispers, strange and disembodied, fluttering through the trees like they belonged to the past. As she watched her children, Jake and Lily, spin in carefree circles, their giggles became chilling echoes that curled around the house. Something felt wrong, and it sent pricking chills down her spine. Neighbors in the seemingly quaint town were friendly, always offering a wave, a smile, yet their eyes held a darkness that made Claire shiver. It became increasingly clear that beneath their sunny facades lay a history woven with unseen threads of tragedy, the infamous stories of the vanishing. Just as Mr. Darnell, her overly friendly neighbor, began recounting local legends, a quiver of fear took hold of Claire. His voice pressed tightly against her ears. "There's a spirit guarding the woods," he warned, "watching for the likes of those who don't belong." When he spoke about the malevolent entity lurking just outside her door, every hair on Claire's neck stood upright, and all she wanted was to flee. But the house was their new hope, she couldn't abandon it just yet. Days passed, and the air grew thick with tension. One night, Claire awoke to hushed whispers drifting from the darkened corners of the house. Her children were staring at shadows, their innocent faces replaced by an alarming fixation. They were drawn to something invisible, and fear clawed at her throat. The attic had always been off-limits, but a storm drawn her to its doors, where dust and darkness entwined. Her fingers shook as she pushed it open, revealing cryptic artifacts covered in webs, remnants of rituals long ago, remnants that felt like a warning. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. With each tick of the clock, dread wrapped its fingers tighter around her heart. Shadows flitted just beyond the trees, whispering her children's names, sounding like a haunting call she couldn't decipher. The forest had become a monster, beckoning sinister methods to consume her family. Mr. Darnell's assurances about understanding the land weighed heavily on her, like an anchor pulling her into the abyss. One night, with the moon glowing ghostly overhead, she stood at the forest's edge, her heart in her throat. The wind whispered promises of lost souls, taunting her with what she couldn't grasp. And as she turned to run back to her children, the ground beneath her shifted like an angry beast, roots clawing at her ankles. Panic surged. What did they know? What was hidden under the surface of this alarming land? Claire stood frozen in turmoil, facing the impending chaos of her new life. Was she too late to save her children from the secrets that threatened to drag them into the depths of despair? Claire lay in bed that night, the moonlight casting eerie shadows that danced across the walls. Sleep eluded her, each creak of the old house sending jolts of adrenaline through her veins. She glanced at Jake and Lily, peaceful in their slumber, their small hands entwined, but even in their sleep, a chill wound around her heart. The whispers outside had become louder, more insistent, an unholy symphony that clawed at her sanity. Determined to uncover the origin of the noise, she slipped from the bed, drawing a breath deep enough to steel her nerves. The floorboards groaned under her weight, almost as if they, too, were warning her to turn back. Each step toward the window felt like passing through a veil of tension. She pulled back the curtain, revealing the forest a tangle of black and gray twisted shapes, like jagged teeth against the night sky. The air was thick with an unsettling stillness. Something was lurking just beyond her sight. Suddenly, the whispering escalated, a cacophony of indistinct voices converging into a single shrill cry. Claire recoiled, slamming the window shut, but the noise continued to seep in. It felt alive, reaching out for her, prying at the seams of her composure. Before she could gather her thoughts, a thud resonated from the attic. The sound echoed like a warning bell. The children stirred, but Claire hushed them, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and fury. This couldn't continue. She had to confront whatever was tormenting her family. She grabbed a flashlight and hesitantly climbed the creaking stairs to the attic. As she reached the door, an icy draft swept through the hallway, snuffing out her courage. Hands trembling, she turned the knob and opened the door to a heavy darkness. The beam of her flashlight pierced through, revealing the artifacts she had glimpsed before: dusty books with tattered pages, jars filled with unidentifiable contents, and strange symbols scrawled across the walls. But the corner of the attic caught her eye. A shadow shifted, darting just outside the reach of her light. "Hello? Is anyone there?" she called, voice quavering. Silence answered her, a deafening void that swallowed her words. Then she heard it again, the whisper, more distinct now. Claire, it echoed with familiarity, yet the tone was laced with malice. Her skin crawled. "Get out," the voice hissed, and she stumbled backward, nearly tripping over a pile of discarded belongings. Panic surged as she realized the voice was not just in her head but resonating from the very walls of the attic, a haunting echo of someone or something waiting for her. She turned, adrenaline fueling her retreat as she dashed down the stairs, her heart racing wildly. Once back in her room, she locked the door, breathing heavily. She couldn't shake the sensation of eyes watching her from the woods, from the shadows. What did they want? The thought enveloped her like a shroud. Fearing for her children's safety, she lay back on the bed, staring up at the ceiling, waiting for dawn. But sleep refused to come. The howling wind sang around the house, nor did the whispers subside. They crept in, calling each name in cruel melody. Then suddenly, silence descended as if the world paused to take a breath. Just as Claire dared to hope for some reprieve, a loud crash resonated from the living room. The door rattled, followed by a heavy thud against the floor. She turned to her children, hearts racing in terror. "Stay close," she whispered, gripping their small hands tighter than ever. Whatever was out there had decided to come in. Standing on the brink of chaos, Claire knew that the true horror was only beginning. Would they survive the night? As fear washed over her, the shadows shifted, coalescing into a form just outside the hallway door, and the whispering resumed. "Your turn," it hissed, and Claire's blood ran cold. What horrors awaited them now? The air grew thick with an unnatural chill, wrapping around Claire like a wet blanket. Her pulse reverberated in her ears, muffling the otherworldly sounds creeping through the cracks. The whispering outside had faded, replaced by a chilling stillness, as if the entire universe held its breath. Holding Jake and Lily close, she felt their little bodies trembling against hers, mirroring her own fear. "Do you hear that?" she whispered, the tremor in her voice betraying her resolve. They nodded, wide eyes staring up at her with an innocence that broke her heart. She had to protect them. She had to be strong. The rattling in the living room escalated, a violent sound echoing across the expanse of their home. A loud bang made the walls shake, and Claire felt a surge of primal terror explode in her chest. She didn't want to leave the safety of her room, but the living room was the only way out, the only way to check on what had invaded their sanctuary. "Stay here," she commanded, breathing hard. Her voice was steady, but fear was clawing at her throat. "I'll be right back." Jake looked up, his small face pale. "Don't go, Mommy." Lily's whimper almost knocked the breath from her. "I have to." With one last squeeze of their hands, Claire creaked to her feet, her flashlight still grasped tightly. She edged toward the door, each creak of the floor a reminder of how vulnerable they were in this forsaken house. Pushing the door open, she was met by a darkness that seemed to breathe back at her. Claire stepped into the hallway, the flashlight beam cutting through the blackness like a sword. Shadows loomed, shifting and swirling around her. Every instinct screamed to flee, but she pressed on, driven by a mixture of dread and determination. As she moved closer to the living room, she noticed the silhouettes of pictures on the walls twisted grotesquely in the feeble light. They seemed to contort, stretching into forms that flickered and danced. Vision blurred, her heart thudding louder with each step. Another crash echoed from the living room, and she stumbled, nearly losing her grip on the flashlight. "Please, let it just be the wind," she murmured to herself. But deep down, she knew it wasn't. With every nerve on edge, she stepped into the living room, and the sight before her sent her instinctively stepping back. The furniture lay overturned like the aftermath of a tempest. Books that once lined the shelves were scattered across the floor, pages torn as if something had tried to dig deeper into their contents. And then she saw it underneath the broken dining table, a shadow, darker than the rest. It writhed and twisted, whispering in a language that made her blood run cold, eye sockets hollow yet pinpricks glimmering with a grotesque light. "Claire," it crooned, a voice like rusted nails. "Come, join us." Her breath caught, instinct screaming for her to run, but she was frozen, heart pounding violently as the air grew thick with malevolence. "Get away from my family!" she shouted, voice strong despite her fear. The words hung heavy in the air, shattering the quiet. For a split second, the creature stilled. Claire's heart raced as she felt the heaviness of its gaze pierce through her. Then, in a burst of movement, it lunged. She barely had time to scream before the world exploded in darkness. As consciousness flickered, Claire struggled against the pull of the abyss. Where were her children? A sharp pang of realization surged through her. If she couldn't fight this off, what would become of them? "Wake up!" she gasped, her voice a whisper almost drowned by her fear. What would she discover when she opened her eyes? What darkness awaited her on the other side? Would love be enough to save them from the malevolence lurking in their home? And when she felt the cold breath brush against her skin once more, she knew it was far from over. What had she awakened? What hungers were now unleashed? Awareness clawed its way back to Claire, seeping through the haze of darkness that wrapped around her mind. Each breath felt sharp, like shards of ice scraping against her lungs. She opened her eyes, the flash of light blinding before the hazy room came into focus. Lying on the floor, the furniture loomed like silent sentinels watching her awakening with eerie stillness. The air was thick, moving almost like a living thing, swirling gently over her skin. Where were Jake and Lily? "Jake! Lily!" she called out, voice shaky, panic lacing each syllable. Silence answered. Sucking in a deep breath, Claire pushed herself upright, her body responding sluggishly, as if weighed down. Adrenaline thundered through her veins, urging her to move, to find them. She felt the floor creak beneath her as she rose, the sound echoing like an ominous bell throughout the empty room. With her flashlight still clutched tightly in her palm, Claire scanned her surroundings. The shadows seemed to crawl and dance, transforming familiar shapes into nightmarish forms. Each flicker of the beam made their movements more exaggerated, more grotesque. She stepped forward, but hesitation gnawed at her. Had the thing from before come for her children? Was it still near? A shiver ran down her spine as she remembered the chilling whisper. What were its intentions? "Stay calm, Claire," she muttered under her breath, forcing herself to focus. Following the hallway, she flicked the flashlight back and forth, casting beams of light that skittered away from her like scared animals. In the kitchen, remnants of their evening meal lay scattered, the rotting food now somehow more unsettling. The knife from the counter was missing, the place void of any normalcy. Was that blood? She squinted at a dark, glistening stain pooling by the doorframe. No, the realization hit her like a punch to the gut. She stumbled back, heart racing with a terror that surged in sync with her panic. "Jake! Lily!" she screamed again, her voice barely rising above the suffocating silence. As she reached the living room doorway, a chill enveloped her. The walls seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. Then, as if summoned, a howl echoed, vibrating through the house. "Mommy! A small, trembling voice cried out, resonating from somewhere just beyond her sight. The sound was laced with desperation. "Lily!" Claire rushed toward the voice, desperation fueling her steps. "Stay where you are." Suddenly, the lights flickered above her, then extinguished completely. The world plunged into darkness, and the temperature dropped. The oppressive silence of her home was shattered by a series of frantic knocks, echoing through the house, growing louder by the second. In that moment, a vision clawed through her mind, the shadowy creature with burning eyes and that voice, beckoning her, seducing her into forsaking the light. It was still hunting, it wasn't done. "Stay behind me!" Claire yelled, filled with a fierce need to protect her little ones. "I'm coming for you." The air became denser as she pressed through the darkness, feeling it wrap around her like fingers tightening. Then another sound: footsteps. Soft, shuffling. Her heart dropped. It wasn't her children's. They were too erratic, too unsteady. Claire turned, attempting to brace herself, to face whatever threat loomed near. In the terrible stillness, she heard a whisper, this one distinctly chilling. "Come join us, Claire." The call was intoxicating, familiar, and terrifying. Claire's mind raced. What had happened to her children? The urge to obey surged within her as she stood frozen, caught between safety and the promise of whatever lurked in the dark. And then she felt its cold hands brushing against her cheek. The connection snapped, the reality locked in her mind. She had to fight. As she writhed against the hands, the world around her narrowed. Would she break free from the tendrils of darkness, or would this be where everything succumbed tonight? And then, in that suffocating moment of dread, Claire braced herself. Would she become prey, or would she find the strength to save her children from whatever nightmare had taken hold of their home? What awaited her just beyond the veil of chaos? Claire's heart raced, the cold hand still grazing her skin. She fought against the pull of the shadowy whisper that threatened to sweep her away. The very air around her felt thick, like it wanted to choke her, to drown her in despair. She opened her mouth to scream again, but no sound emerged. She was locked in an unseen battle, trembling against the grip of fear. With sheer will, she tore herself away from the cold caress. Adrenaline surged, propelling her forward, down the hallway, away from the lingering shadows. She didn't know where she was going, she just needed to move to find Jake and Lily. "Just hold on. I'm coming," she cried, conviction fueling her steps. The house groaned in response, floors creaking beneath her. Each corner turn seemed to taunt her, revealing only more darkness, more of that overwhelming silence. But amidst the quiet, panic pulsed with each heartbeat, chasing her away from whatever lay behind. Then, she heard it again, a faint whimper, cutting through the stillness. Her breath hitched. "Lily." She followed the sound, each step feeling heavier than the last, as though something invisible was trying to pull her back. The walls closed in, shifting like a breathing entity, hiding secrets she dared not uncover. With a flick of her flashlight, she focused on a small figure huddled against the wall at the far side of the living room. Relief flooded through her. "Lily." She rushed towards her child, the flashlight beam sweeping through the darkness. As she drew closer, the light fell on what was left of her daughter, a wisp of a shadow, shaking and wide-eyed. Her hair hung in wild disarray, her clothes rumpled, smudged with strange dark stains that dripped like shadows. "Mommy, help!" Lily squeaked, her voice trembling. "Did you see Jake?" Claire took hold of Lily's arms, shaking her slightly, the desperation seeping into her voice. I can't find him. The thing, it took him." Terror slammed into Claire like a freight train. "No." Tears pricked at her eyes. "Listen to me. We need to get out of here." But as Claire started to guide her daughter away, the air grew darker still, heavier with dread. The temperature plummeted, making Claire's breath visible puffs that hung like specters in the air. A rumbling growl echoed, low and menacing, reverberating through the very walls of their home. "Mommy, It's coming. Lily whimpered, her tiny body tensing in fear. Amidst the shadows that crept closer, Claire could see the outline of the doorway, the outside world, the safety of daylight just waiting beyond. But as she pulled Lily towards it, the wind howled like a beast, pushing them back, forcing them to pause. And then it appeared. A figure coalesced from the darkness, its body twisting, arms elongated and grotesque, face obscured in a shroud of swirling shadow. Those burning eyes locked onto Claire, a glint of something ancient and hungry dancing within. "Leave her," it hissed, voice smooth like silk, yet dripping with malice. Instinctively, Claire stepped in front of Lily, shielding her. The protective instinct flared brightly within her, filling her with a fierce rage. "No. You won't take her." But doubt began to creep in. What if this was the end? What if fighting was futile? Visions of Jake, lost and alone, swept through her mind. "Stay close, Lily," she urged, her voice steadier than she felt. The creature's laugh echoed, curling around her like thin smoke. "Join us, Claire. You can be with him again. All you have to do is surrender." Claire's mind raced. Surrender? Give in to this nightmare? Fear clashed with the desperate need to save her children. The walls of the house seemed to pulse against her back. And as the creature lunged forward, the air crackling with a malevolence she could almost touch, Claire made a choice. She would not lose her children to the darkness. "Run, Lily!" she shouted, eyes narrowed at the beast. Run now. But would escape be enough? Would she save Lily, or was she already too late? As Claire turned to flee, the shadows twisted and laughed, mocking her defiance and shrouding her path in uncertainty. What awaited them at the door and beyond, in the daylight that flickered just out of reach? Would she find Jake? Would they all escape, or was the darkness destined to consume them? As they careened toward the threshold, time seemed suspended, thick with impending fate. The moment Claire turned, the shadows lunged at her, a wave of darkness surging forward, sharp as fangs. She ran, pulling Lily close, their hearts pounding in frantic unison. The laughter of the creature echoed behind them, a cruel symphony of malice that seeped into her bones. "Mommy, it's too dark. I can't see," Lily cried, panic rising like bile in Claire's throat. "Just hold on," Claire shouted, her voice nearly drowned by the howling wind that swirled around them, trying to tear them apart. The doorway loomed ahead, the light from outside flickering like a distant star in a vast abyss. Claire dashed toward it, but the air thickened, as if the house itself resented her flight, the walls compressing inwards as if to swallow them whole. "Claire!" A voice sliced through the cacophony. Familiar yet twisted. It was Jake, distant and desperate. "Mom! Jake!" The sound burst from her lips, her heart swelling even as fear slithered around it. "Where are you? Don't listen. Keep going," he shouted. His voice trembled, reverberating with an intensity that sent shivers dancing across her skin. "Mommy, I want Daddy," Lily wailed, the child's small hands clenching tighter around Claire's. "Just a little more." Claire pressed on, pulling Lily toward the glowing rectangle of the door. But the darkness twisted, curling around her legs like serpents, attempting to hold her back. Struggling, Claire kicked at the shadows, focused on the light that promised safety, even as the creature's rancid breath brushed against her. She could feel its very essence clawing at her, whispering promises of despair and loss. "You can't escape," it hissed, its tone a mixture of hunger and delight. "Join us, Claire. Join your family in the void." "No!" she screamed, fury mixing with fear. "I won't abandon them. I won't." With a surge of strength born from desperation, she rounded the last corner toward the door. The sunlight glowed brighter, illuminating the terror-stricken face of her daughter. Just a few steps more. Then she saw him, Jake, silhouetted in the doorway, looking pale and gaunt, a shadow of himself. Mom! Help me! Her heart shattered at his state. This wasn't her son, this was something else. The shadows poured from behind him, claws reaching out as they tugged at his form like hungry toddlers. No! You don't get to take my family! Claire screamed, raw and primal, as she shoved Lily forward into the blinding light. Get out! Get out now! The moment Lily breached the threshold, the sun flared, filling the space with a brilliant blaze that forced the darkness back. Claire hesitated. Would the light be enough to truly protect them? She turned, ready to grab Jake, but the shadows swelled around him like a storm. Mommy, help me! His voice cracked with sheer terror as darkness enveloped him, swallowing him whole. A guttural growl erupted, shaking the very foundation of the house. It was demanding a price, a sacrifice. And Claire froze, caught in the agony of her choice. Lily tugged vehemently at her hand, pulling Claire toward the light, but her eyes were fixed on Jake, her mind screaming for him, desperate to save him. Come with us. The shadows whispered darkly, seducing her with promises. Claire felt the edges of her sanity fray. I can't leave him. Mommy. The shadows clawed at her legs, urging her to give in, to yield, to join the darkness where it felt powerful, where the shadows whispered her fears into submission. The scream bubbling inside her could no longer be contained. I will end this. She shouted, defiance echoing in the face of despair. And in that moment, as the darkness twisted in on itself, a glimmer of hope sparked inside her. What lay ahead? Would it be salvation or a traffic of horrors? With one last glance back, Claire yanked Lily through the threshold, feeling the sunlight wash over them in waves, but the familiar laughter of the shadows echoed taunting, teasing, threatening. The door slammed shut behind them, and the weight of silence deafened her. What awaited them outside, in the light, where the shadows could not follow? And in the distance, a new cry was heard. Jake's voice, begging her to come back. Would she dare to return? Would she dare to confront the darkness, knowing it wouldn't release its grip so easily? The sunlight felt warm but distant as Claire stumbled away from the house, pulling Lily behind her. The shadows receded, but their taunts lingered like a lingering itch beneath her skin. Her heart raced, pumping adrenaline into her veins, and yet, the image of Jake locked in that nightmare haunted her every step. Mommy, what's wrong? Lily's small voice was filled with confusion. Claire looked down at her daughter, her bright eyes flickering with fear and innocence. Nothing, sweet pea. We're safe now. But she didn't believe it. The shadows whispered promises of doom in the back of her mind, swirling with visions of Jake. She was alive, but what cost had she paid for that? They moved toward the tree line, each step echoing in the silence around them. The world felt different out here, eerily still. The chirps of birds suddenly ceased, leaving a haunting void where nature once thrived. Claire's stomach churned as she scanned the area, knowing the shadows were not truly gone. They stalked them patient and hungry. Where's Dad? Lily asked, and Claire's heart tightened at the thought of her husband trying to fend off the darkness alone. We'll find him, I promise. But the words felt hollow, like a plea to something that might not exist anymore. Lily pulled Claire toward a grove of trees where the sunlight filtered through the leaves, creating a dappled quilt on the forest floor. Look, Mommy. It's pretty. For a heartbeat, Claire felt a flicker of hope. This could be a sanctuary, a place to hide from the nightmare that clutched her heart. Yet, as they ventured deeper, the shadows cast by the trees twisted eerily on the ground, shifting and morphing, like dark serpents waiting to strike. Suddenly, a rustling nearby sent an electric jolt through Claire's body. Stay close, Lily. She whispered fiercely, adrenaline thrumming through her like a live wire. They crept forward, listening to the forest. A low growl cut through the silence, sending a chill racing down Claire's spine. It was there, lurking, biding its time. Mommy, I'm scared. Lily clung to her leg, trembling. Me too, Claire admitted, fighting back her own terror. They needed to find shelter, a place to regroup. She spotted an old cabin peeking through the dense trees, its windows boarded up, offering an unsettling yet sheltering presence. As they neared it, the cabin seemed to exhale a damp, musty aroma that hinted at a history long forgotten. Claire ushered Lily inside, closing the door behind them with a shuddering breath. Inside, the light was dim, the air thick with dust. "Why is it so dark, Mommy?" Lily asked, peering around. "It's just the cabin. It'll be okay." Claire tried to sound calm, but dread clawed at her throat. The walls felt suffocating as if they too held memories of despair. They moved cautiously through the cabin, finding remnants of a time before, tattered furniture, family portraits with eyes that seemed to follow every movement. In the corner, an old radio crackled to life, static filling the air with eerie whispers. "Listen," Claire murmured, pressing a finger to her lips. The whispers distorted, shifting from static to a voice that seemed oddly familiar. "Help me, Mommy, who's that?" Claire's heart raced. "I don't know, sweetheart," but a horrible realization dawned on her. The voice echoed Jake's, parched and desperate. "Mommy, it's him. It's Daddy." "Lily, no," she started, the shadows creeping back into her mind, tightening their grip. But before she could stop her, Lily darted toward the radio, reaching for the knob. "Lily, wait!" Claire shouted, panic rising as the air electrified with an all-consuming darkness. Lily's hand met the dial, and the whispers intensified, a blind rage of cacophony wrapped in seduction. "Join us, be with him." Claire felt a pull toward the radio, her vision blurring as hope collided with horror. Was Jake really there? If she could save him, "Lily, don't!" She screamed, but it was too late. In that instant, the cabin trembled, shadows erupting from every corner, enveloping them in cold darkness. Claire lost her footing, falling to the floor as tendrils of night wrapped around her, pulsing with a life of their own. And in that swirling darkness, a new voice emerged, a scathing, sultry laughter that echoed through her very bones. "You should ve never left." Was this the end? Or merely a deeper descent into the shadows that claimed her family? As the darkness swallowed them whole, Claire's final thought echoed with dreadful clarity: she had to find a way back to the light, even if it meant sacrificing everything to do so. Claire was trapped in a whirlpool of shadows, the air heavy as if soaked in darkness. Dread clawed at her legs, dragging her down, while the radio pulsed like a heartbeat, drowning out Lily's cries. "Mommy!" Each plea punctured the heavy mist around them, yet they felt further away, echoing as if lost in another world. With every ounce of strength, Claire fought against the encroaching void, reaching out for her daughter. "Lily!" She could barely see through the shadowy haze, but she heard her daughter's whimpering, a frightened reflection of her own terror. Suddenly, the shadows recoiled, releasing their grip, and Claire propelled herself toward Lily's voice. She stumbled forward, grasping blindly until her fingers found the small, warm hand of her daughter. Relief surged through her, igniting a desperate flame inside her chest. "I've got you." The cacophony from the radio dissolved into a cold laugh, and Claire instinctively turned toward it, anger surging. "Shut up!" She shouted into the darkness around her, voices of the past taunting her with desolation. She could feel the presence watching, lurking just beyond the edge of her perception. As they grappled with the weight of shadows around them, the radio's voice morphed into something tangible, solidifying as an image, a figure cloaked in shadows, shifting and twisting to form familiar features. Claire felt her stomach drop. It was Jake, his face gaunt and his eyes swirling voids of sorrow and desperation. "Help me," the whispers poured out, dripping with a seductive charm. The love that had once been shared now wielded chilling echoes of despair. Claire's mind screamed in protest, warding off the destruction of the past clawing at her heart. She had to save him or risk losing everything. "Mommy, what's wrong with Daddy?" Lily echoed, her small voice a bell tolling in the silence, grounding Claire in the perilous moment. "Nothing, sweetheart," Claire managed to choke out, but doubt twisted her insides. Would she be able to save Jake without being consumed by the darkness? The cabin loomed around them, its walls shifting like living things, whispering secrets of those who had perished before. Claire felt an overwhelming urge to flee, to escape the echoes of agony that radiated through the air. But with each second, it was clear their time was running out. "Let go of him!" Claire roared, her voice fierce, authoritative. Across the room, Jake's shadow flickered, the pleading in his voice intensifying, wrapping around her like chains. "Join me, Claire. Together, we can be whole again." "No. You're not my Jake." The moment these words slipped from Claire's lips, she caught a glimpse of the radio. Energy crackled around it, and a sudden impulse surged through her. She moved closer, and the shadows slithered back in horror at her determination. With a deep breath, she ripped the radio from the wall, hurling it into the darkened corner with every ounce of rage she could muster. The cabin convulsed as the air erupted with vengeful cries. Shadows writhed as if trapped in agony. "Mommy!" Lily screamed, her tiny hands clutching Claire's shirt. But as the radio shattered against the ground, the cacophony turned into a swirling vortex of darkness. The grasp of shadows weakened, exposing a sliver of light. Claire and Lily stumbled into its glow, struggling to hold onto each other. Screams unleashed from the depths of shadows, a storm of sorrow and rage that echoed through the old rooms of the cabin. The light was tantalizing, bright against the despair. Claire pressed onward, her heart racing as she fought her fears, navigating toward that sliver of hope. Yet, in the midst of that fierce grasp for survival, Claire felt something cold creeping up her spine. She turned back. And there, emerging from the darkness, the familiar figure of Jake stood, twisted and shadow-clad yet undeniably him. "You can't run from this." With one last desperate glance at her fading husband, the shadows howled around them, angry and desperate. The entrance to the light flickered, pulsating. In that moment, Claire had to choose once. And for all her family in the darkness or the chance at hope, and then, the walls began to close in around them, threatening to extinguish the last flicker of light. "Lily! We have to move." In a heart-stopping rush, Claire pulled her daughter closer as they lunged toward the light. The shadows reached for them, their tendrils grazing Claire's arms, sending spikes of ice along her skin. Would they make it out? Or would they succumb to the shadows that called so seductively from behind? The cabin trembled violently. Then, just as they neared the threshold, darkness spilled forth in a final desperate effort to reclaim them, and the last thing Claire heard before everything plunged into chaos was Jake's haunting whisper, "You will never escape me." The light flickered, a heartbeat away from extinction, blinding Claire for a brief moment. She pushed forward, an instinct beyond her conscious thought. The shadows clawed at her, a chorus of phantom screams rising behind her like the boiling wrath of the damned. "Come on, Lily. Just a bit further," Claire urged, her voice strained yet filled with an urgency that propelled them forward. Each step felt agonizing. The light danced, almost teasing them, shimmering like a mirage as the darkness surged behind, desperate to reclaim what it had lost. Lily gasped, her tiny hand slipping slightly from Claire's grasp. A tendril of shadow swiped at her, tangling around the girl's leg. "Mommy! No! Lily!" Claire yanked hard, pulling her daughter free, feeling the icy grip of despair momentarily retreat. They were just a breath away, yet that air felt thick, suffocating. Claire stumbled into the light, which burned brighter now, illuminating the horrors behind them. Jake's figure twisted, still familiar yet unnatural, his eyes voids of sorrow that reached for them. "You can't leave me, Claire!" he howled, the voice splintering into a myriad of echoes. "I need you." "Shut up!" Claire screamed, feeling the weight of his desperation wrap around her heart. The flicker of hope hung by a thread, the shadows gathered, forming a dark wall, an impenetrable force ready to pull them back in. They were almost through. Claire thrust herself forward, the light sizzling against her skin like pure electricity, igniting her will to survive. But before they could escape, a shadow exploded outward, crashing against her like a physical blow. "Mommy!" Claire's scream turned to ice as Lily was yanked back, her small body flung by the force of the dark. Everything happened in a blur. "No! Let her go!" Claire wailed, lunging back to grasp her daughter. The shadows wrapped tighter around her, squeezing, suffocating. Terror shot through Claire's veins like poison as her grip on Lily slipped. She could see her daughter's face, pleading and wide-eyed, before shadows encased her in a breath-stealing embrace. "Mommy!" Lily's voice shattered Claire's resolve. "Stay with me!" Claire cried, desperation throbbing in her chest as she fought the impending darkness. She pushed back with everything she had, refusing to be torn apart by the cruel fate echoing through this cursed place. For one terrifying moment, all hope vanished as Claire realized she was about to lose everything. Then, a surge of adrenaline ignited within her. She remembered the way Lily smiled, the laughter they shared. With a roar born of pure determination, she summoned all her love, a force more powerful than the looming despair. "Light! Come back!" she cried, reaching into the void for the flicker of hope that had once been so radiant. In that moment, something shattered inside the cabin, releasing an audible groan of agony as the shadows recoiled, shocked. Claire felt warmth engulf her, the light expanding beyond the flicker, burning brighter than before. In a blinding flash, the oppressive darkness turned to ash, scattering like whispers on the wind. Then Claire was falling into the light, grasping desperately for Lily. Their hands connected, a bond so fierce it broke the remaining hold of darkness. Suddenly, their flight was interrupted. An unseen force slammed into Claire, pushing her back as she struggled to shield Lily from the wave of shadows crashing forth. She screamed, feeling her strength wane, but her daughter's fingers dug deep into her palm, lending her the courage to push on. With a deafening crack, the walls of the cabin seemed to split, revealing the true, sunlit world outside, juxtaposed against the horrors they were escaping. "Mommy, please!" Lily whimpered in that moment, bathed in light and surrounded by the furious howls of their past. Claire made a choice, to face whatever lay ahead instead of retreating into fear. "Hold on!" Claire urged as she pulled them both through the threshold. As their feet touched the ground outside the cabin, the world around them was alive and bustling, eerily vibrant. Yet, the shadows lingered behind them, biding their time, waiting to reclaim what was once theirs. They made it out, but Claire felt a cold dread settle in her bones. The light was fading. "What's happening, Mommy?" Claire looked around, heart racing. The cabin stood still, yet alive in its own sinister way. The whispers echoed softly in the distance, and she shuddered, her instincts screaming that they weren't safe yet. With Lily clutching her hand and a world of darkness holding its breath, Claire realized they had not escaped. They had only bought time. A chilling thought prickled at her mind: could they ever truly escape the dark? And she heard it again, Jake's voice lingering, a faint whisper, "You will never escape me." The ground beneath them trembled, and an unnatural silence enveloped the forest. Something was about to change. In the eerie stillness, another figure emerged from the shadows, unshackled and ready to cross the threshold. Claire's breath caught as she realized their nightmare was just beginning. The sun hung low on the horizon, casting streaks of orange and pink across the Montana landscape, a beautiful facade hiding the chaos within Claire's heart. She clutched Lily's small hand, their fingers intertwined with a fierce urgency. They stood outside the old cabin, its once threatening walls now a looming reminder of what they had barely escaped. Shadows danced in the corners of Claire's vision, whispering words she feared to comprehend. "Mommy, what's wrong?" Lily's voice broke through her fog of dread. "Nothing, sweet pea. Just, we need to keep moving." Claire led her away from the cabin, but with every step she took toward the light, Jake's voice echoed in her mind, a ghostly remnant tangled in guilt and fear. The shadows thinned around them as they walked, but Claire felt their presence lurking, waiting for a moment of weakness. The vibrant world offered no comfort when she knew the darkness brewed within the edges, eager to reclaim what it lost. She glanced at her daughter, whose bright eyes flickered with innocence and confusion. "What if we never see Daddy again?" Lily whispered, and the question echoed through Claire's chest, solidifying her fears. "We will," Claire promised, steadying her voice, but inside, doubt twisted and coiled. How could she reassure her child when she felt as small and lost as a leaf in the wind? As they moved deeper into the trees, the air turned heavy, the chirping of birds vanished, replaced by an oppressive silence. Claire shivered, the sense of being watched creeping into her bones. Suddenly, a rustling ahead snapped her attention. Heart racing, she crouched low, instinct driving her to protect Lily at all costs. "Mommy, I'm scared." Lily's small voice trembled, pulling Claire back from the edge of her resolve. "Stay close," Claire whispered fiercely. She peered through the underbrush to find a figure stepping cautiously toward them, a shadow half hidden by the trees. It was Jake, but he looked different. The sunlight didn't touch him, it just passed through like he was a ghost. "Help me," he pleaded, his voice a haunting echo resonating with sorrow, twisting the very fabric of Claire's heart. "Jake!" she shouted, emotions surging as hope flared within her. But fear followed closely behind. "Don't come any closer." He stepped forward, eyes wide and filled with desperation. "I need you, Claire. They're hurting me." "No!" Claire shouted, stepping protectively in front of Lily, whose small body clutched her fiercely. "You're not him. This isn't my husband." The shadows around Jake swirled, and his form shimmered in the light. "Join me, Claire," he whispered, the darkness rippling around him, seductive and terrifying. "Together we can defeat this." A sickening twirl of emotions twisted inside her. Her heart ached for the man she knew and loved, but this was something else, a darkness masquerading as him. "Stay away from us," she cried, every ounce of her being focused on defending Lily, but the ground trembled, a sinister warning that rumbled through the earth. A low growl emanated from the forest, filling the air with an echoing dread. The shadows coalesced, a vortex of darkness swirling behind Jake, urging him to give in to their call. The landscape itself seemed to pulse as if it were alive, hungry for the return of what had been lost. "Mommy, we can't leave him." Lily's voice cracked, looking up at Claire. "No, sweetie, he's gone." Claire had to fight to keep her voice steady. She could feel the darkness creeping at her heels, enveloping her in despair. "We have to go, Lily. Help me." Jake shouted again, his voice morphing into a cry that shook Claire to her core. Driven by instinct, she turned away from the apparition. "Lily, run!" she yelled, grabbing her daughter's arm and pulling her toward the surrounding light filtering through the trees. They dashed forward, breathless, hearts pounding as the shadows screeched behind them, furious at being denied. With each step, Claire fought against the dark whispers that echoed in her mind, urging her to look back. But she pressed on, desperate for safety. The warmth of the sun enveloped them as they broke through the trees, the world emerging vibrant and alive beyond the edges of the darkness. Panting, Claire turned to Lily, who stared wide-eyed at the brilliant Montana sky. "We made it!" her daughter exclaimed, though Claire could still sense those haunting shadows stalking the edges, waiting for their chance to reclaim what they had lost. The triumphant moment felt like a fragile bubble, suspended in time. "Stay close to me," Claire murmured, tightening her grip on Lily's hand as they moved back to the farmhouse, each step heavy with a new understanding. This peace wouldn't last, the battle wasn't over. As the golden light surrounded them, she felt a strange balance inside, torn between the love that connected her to Jake and the monstrous shadow that threatened her family's safety. But one thing had become clear: she would fight until the end, whatever that might mean. The memories and love shared would be a shield, stronger than fear and darkness. She had survived the deepest nightmare, and now it was time to reclaim the light, one last confrontation with the shadows that had tried to claim her family. Mommy, Lily's small voice broke her thoughts. Will we see Daddy again? Claire's heart ached, catching the lump in her throat. I promise we will, sweetheart. Just keep holding on. As they stepped into the farmhouse, a renewed sense of purpose ignited inside of Claire. Fear might chase them, but it would not claim her family. Together, they would face the darkness, moving forward from the brink of despair and refusing to yield. Claire took a deep breath, feeling the shadows linger just beyond the threshold. She could sense their anger, their call, echoing within, but now was not the time to falter. They would face it all together, united, stronger, and ready to fight for the light. No matter what, she would not turn back. The doors banged shut behind them, sealing their fate together, fighting against whatever awaited on the other side. The battle was far from over, but love would guide them through the darkest of nights. Now, more than ever, it was time to take a stand. Subscribe immediately to our channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm, it really makes a difference. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories. What do you think will happen next? Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans understand the importance of showing support through these actions. Let us keep this story alive.